This next session, excuse me, will be captivating. Please welcome back to the stage, Mr. Sam DeBord.
Thanks, everybody, for coming back. We appreciate you making it back to your seats. We have a great, important session that we're honored to be able to put on today. I think a lot of you know Glenn Sanford. You've heard about his company. I've known Glenn for a long time. It's kind of interesting that we had to come to Milan to get together because Glenn lives right up the road from me. It's a couple hours north. I'm in Seattle. He's in Bellingham. That's where he founded eXp Realty. And when you know someone like that from early on, you've got these just sort of straightforward business experiences. I've known Glenn to be a brilliant technologist, a brilliant brokerage person, but he was in my local market. We went to these little RE bar camps and different conferences. And I don't know if you've heard the saying, they say something to the effect of, a prophet is never without honor except in his hometown. And sometimes when you're that close to someone, you've got this very focused vision of who that person is, and you think that they're a great person, they're a smart person, but you can't see from a broad perspective how important that person and their vision can be. When Glenn brought the idea to us, starting in the Northwest, about this idea of a remote brokerage organization, not just on Zoom, but living in a 3D virtual world doing meetings in a virtual world, I thought, that's really cool. That's really interesting. But it's too early. It's too early. Agents aren't ready. I was managing a brokerage company there as well in Seattle. Well, boy, was I wrong. eXp, now the largest brokerage in terms of transactions in the world, and it's been an incredible rise of growth for the organization, and we're honored to have him here, Chair of eXp World Holdings, Glenn Sanford.
Sam, good to see you.
Great to see you. So I think it's probably good to level set with folks. You have an international organization, but to kind of give them an idea of the scope of eXp, what it is today.
Yeah, for those who aren't super familiar with it, eXp is now, we have about 87,000 agents. We operate in 24 countries. Most of the agents are in the US and Canada. We've got about 70,000 or so in the U.S., another 6,000 or so in Canada, and but we started actually 15 years ago yesterday, so we just celebrated our 15th anniversary, and we started with this basic idea. I got my real estate license as an agent in 2002, and I was 35 at the time, but I'd been mentored in business. I had started some businesses, and I had some really good business mentors. And I was sold on this idea that I have a real estate business, but if you really examine a real estate agent's business, it's really a business that owns them, meaning that if they don't go out and list and sell real estate, they're effectively out of business. And so then the next thing is, okay, well, if that's not quite a business, then what I need to do, and then the idea was to start a real estate team, which isn't actually that dissimilar to most real estate offices internationally. Most real estate offices are really little teamerages, but the next thing was to start a real estate team, and so I did that. In fact, Terry Murphy, who's here, she had launched a platform called I Succeed University back in the day, and I was studying all of these from all these great leaders that had come before about what they were doing to build teams. So I was using that platform to really kind of hone what we were doing. But by 2007, I decided that I needed to step up again and actually start a real estate brokerage. And at each stage, I realized that I hadn't quite got to the point where I really owned the business. The business still fundamentally owned me. And what I think about a business is a business should provide passive income to the owners once it's built right. I mean, I think most of us are all business people in the room, and really the purpose of the business should be to kind of fund your ability to do other things. And if you don't get it to that point, then you're really working in the business, not as much on the business. So 2007, we started a brokerage called Buyer Tours Realty, and then 2008 happened, and the whole market collapsed, and I couldn't afford offices. I had 4 at the time, and but what I'd been taking notes all along the way of, if I ever do this again, here's what I'd do. Anybody do that? You know, if I ever had to start again, I would change this whole thing. Well, 2008, 2009 actually created the perfect backdrop to take some of the ideas that I kind of penciled out in my head and said, why don't we do that? One, we couldn't afford offices, so we said, how do we build a business model that's not dependent on bricks and mortar? Because that was the single biggest cost to run a real estate brokerage. And then 2, if we didn't have physical offices, what would it take for agents to want to hang their license there? And then it dawned on me that the biggest challenge for a real estate agent is that there's no retirement in the real estate industry for real estate professionals. And so I said, well, if we can build a retirement engine where agents can retire with some level of dignity, then maybe agents would want to come and actually be a part of this brokerage. And I further thought about it from the perspective of, would this be a brokerage that I would hang my license at and actually be a lifer at, spend the rest of my career at? And that's what we fundamentally went and built. So we built that. We came up with some of the concepts in early 2009. By July, August, we kind of had it locked down. And on October 6th, 2009, my big motivational speech to the team at the time was, this is going to work or it's not going to work, and if it doesn't work, we're all looking for work. And so we launched with this really a big science experiment. Could you go to work as an avatar in a virtual world, create collaboration and community, and empower agents to build the businesses that work for them, serving the clients that they have in their local markets? And we started with about 45 agents overall from the teams that I ran, and we launched it, and then it took off. So that was really the beginnings of it, and as we grew, we grew rapidly. Not so much in the early years. It was a grind in 2010, 11, 12, 13. By about 2015, we had our first year where we really grew rapidly. We went from 400 to 800 agents in 2015, and then we went from 800 to 2,400 agents in 2016, and then up to 8,000 in 2017. And so we really hit this sort of hockey stick curve of growth. And then we had agents saying, hey, can we go to Canada? Can we go to the UK? Can we go to Australia? And so 2018, we actually opened up those 2 markets, and then we started to add more markets to it, and it really resonates with agents. They're one, we've got a good commission split and cap feature, which is, if you run an international brokerage, it's fairly expensive for agents in a lot of respects, not the least of which is the cap and split model. And then there's the portals and the other things. So I may get into that in a little bit because I've learned a lot about portals. We need MLS to basically moderate what portals charge to agents and brokerages. I can tell you that. I've seen that. Anyway, I'm just going to stop there. But we've obviously grown quite a bit, and we've got 2 or 3 countries that we've got now on the horizon. We're getting ready to open. Probably another one that we solidified through a little bit of a handshake yesterday. So we got another one that we'll probably launch from some help from some folks here in this room. So
Great, that's fantastic. It's we talked a lot at this event about telling a story, having an idea, having a vision. and being able to have people buy into that vision. You've got the nuts and bolts of the business. You've got to be able to build a brokerage and have the right compensation model. But the story is the thing that draws people in. We, at the beginning of the pandemic a few years ago, we hold a couple of conferences a year for RESO in person, and people, it's one of their favorite parts of the year because especially a lot of the developers and engineers and the software folks who don't get out on the conference circuit like all you may do, they love being there in person, but we were locked down. And EXP said, why don't you host a reception in our world? Why don't you just do your receptions there? And again, it's a very different idea. And folks at first think, well, I've done a Zoom happy hour. Do you remember people trying to do Zoom happy hours at the beginning of the pandemic? But it was amazing how many adults just acted like kids and ran around the EXP world and kicked soccer balls and had conversations. And it was really interesting. From the vision perspective, how do you think about that? How do you think about telling a story to people that convinces them to buy in more than just, hey, it's a good split, but that this vision of the organization is something that's going to make their lives better?
Yeah, the way I think about it is that you have to serve a bigger purpose. And our purpose really was to be the first real estate brokers that could provide a meaningful retirement for real estate professionals. It didn't exist really in a significant way. Keller Williams has their take on it, their profit share model, but it wasn't very profitable. I can speak from experience. I was there, and so when we make it all about the agent, I think we are, as human beings, there's certainly a motivation to make money in this industry. That's why real estate agents get their license. That's why we build businesses. That's why we do the things that we do. But there's actually a bigger need, which is serving other people and helping them achieve what they want to achieve. And for us, that really fundamentally is helping agents build real businesses that scale and actually change their life and their life trajectory. The number of people that have come up to me over the years, it's incredible. The number of people have basically said that because of EXP, they were able to send their kids to college, they were able to pay off their house, they were able to do a number of things through either the equity awards or the revenue share, or just the fact that they were able to put more money in their pocket from the commissions that they generated. So for us, that's the mission. We say every day we go to work with the singular mission of being the most agent-centric real estate brokerage on the planet. And it really allows us both to be aligned with our agents, but also creates this real internal drive and mission for everything that we do. And I think it's important because at the end of the day, even though there's a profit orientation to running a business, by being mission-oriented, we actually become more profitable than being profit-focused. And so that mission and that story is really, the big piece that we spend our time really articulating every single day. What decisions are we making that's going to make the agents' lives better? And then we know if we can get enough agents as part of the platform, then it takes care of any of the financial pieces that ultimately drop down to our bottom line.
It fits really the message of what we have here too, is that it's so important what you're doing, obviously, with the lives of the real estate agents, but the way that our marketplaces serve people's housing needs. Massively important things. We don't sell sneakers and video games in this industry. We help people find housing opportunities, which is just one of those basic needs. When you think about that and your role in the real estate industry, and then your experience going global, going into different countries, what has that been like, and where do you find challenges and opportunities internationally?
So I wish the whole world operated like the U.S. and Canada, just saying that in the U.S. and Canada, because of the role that the MLS plays, it makes the business so much easier. When every time we step into a new market, there's 2, 3, 4 different portals, and the conversations that I've had, and I don't think the portals that are represented in this room that I had these conversations with, so I'm going to just be a little bit probably more candid than I should, because it may still get back to them. But we had one conversation with one portal, and they told us to our face that they wanted to raise our prices 10% per year until it reached parity with what it used to cost in the newspaper to advertise properties. And there was no mitigating tool in our arsenal to really fundamentally keep them from doing that in that market. And now I'm a technologist, I'm an internet marketer, I've got, so we have, we'll say our sort of bag of tricks and things that we're working on to mitigate some of that. But that's been the biggest challenge, is just seeing how expensive this business is on agents and brokerages because of the stranglehold that the portals outside of North America, the stranglehold that portals have on the perception of what it takes to market properties and the number of leads that are coming from those portals, and the fact that in some markets they are 100% profit maximizing organizations that have zero interest in what we care about as agents and brokerages.
Yeah, it's a complex business, and you obviously have to have your business model that works for the folks that you work with, your agents and their consumers. When you think about technology, it's obviously not everything, but it's a part of the conversation, and it was part of what made your story unique. The business model and the technology was very unique compared to the other brokerage models usually for collaboration. What do you see right now? What kinds of new technologies are you working on? What do you think are kind of the next steps for the brokerage industry in terms of technology?
Yeah, so we're focusing on well, we just did a relationship with a product. We don't own it, but we've got the worldwide rights to outside of North America in terms of our partnership with the platform, and you can see it at homehunter.global. But it's a really unique platform that allows consumers and agents to basically install a browser extension to co-browse, co-bookmark, and co-market property through, regardless of what real estate portal they're using. And so we really like it as a way to kind of bring back a little bit of power back to the brokerage and the agent, and to connect the relationships back to the agents, and to some extent sort of disintermediate the stranglehold that portals have on those relationships. It's probably not going to have a huge impact, but it's going to have some impact in terms of our ability to innovate and continue to scale. Obviously right now, and there were a number of people have talked about sort of where AI sort of operates in this whole ecosystem. But in the next, we're already seeing people using platforms like Cursor and new models off of platforms like Hugging Face and others, where you're eventually going to be able to rapidly develop and remove some of the SaaS expenses or the software service expenses that you currently have as a brokerage. So you think about all the CRM stuff and IDX stuff and all that. A lot of that stuff is going to be things that you'll be able to actually build by having a conversation eventually with your AI and actually build out your own tech stack that's going to provide better features and functionality than going to a third-party SaaS provider. So I'm really excited about sort of what that sort of operates like. We're heavy users of AI. We're in the process of rolling out over 1,000 of the enterprise OpenAI seats to all of our staff. We're building hundreds, if not thousands, of custom GPTs for everything from broker advice to marketing tools to to scripts and dialogues, to and then automation that goes along with that. We're exposing through a number of GPTs in public domain, a lot of cool things that will help both educate consumers. We've got one that's coming out, actually when we release our earnings for EXPI, we're actually going to have a investor relations GPT where you'll have conversations like you would with an investor relations person, but you'll be able to do that with a GPT that we've pre-programmed and pre-set up. So we've got a lot of things that we're doing relative to AI, and in my opinion, you can't go in enough on AI. You may not be able to implement everything that you're learning in real time, but you will get so many prototypes of where the future is going that it will give you a preview of where you're going to be a year from now or 2 years from now because of the things that you can do today. One thing that we just loved playing with this here recently is how many of you played with the notebook LLM from Google? Anybody seen that? Couple few folks. Like, it's pretty crazy what this will do. It'll basically build you the best podcast on any content you put into it. And so we've taken our employee manuals, we've taken our country leader manuals. We own Success Magazine. We just uploaded the latest issue of Success Magazine, and the conversations that these AIs actually have that sound human, and you are, you would have paid $15,000-$20,000 to get the voices, the scripts, the conversations, and all this, and it literally is just upload a document and push generate a conversation. It's just incredible what you can do. And so just all these things that are coming at us so quickly, even a month from now, the whole landscape will have changed.
It is incredible. We've loaded a couple documents about the data dictionary, a couple documents about our conference coming up, and it puts together an ad with a couple of very realistic people having just a lively conversation about your boring, static forms, the data dictionary. It really is incredible. We all usually have these conversations about buy versus build. Some of these things you're going to do on your own. Some of these things you're going to leverage someone else's technology. You had, a few years back when we started and did our reception in EXP World, a downloadable system that took some time, and now you've moved to sort of web-based. What do you see in terms of collaboration within the organization, technology-wise?
Yeah, so so Sam's referring to our EXP World. We had bought a company back in 2018 called Verbella, and it was a downloadable client to actually use a metaverse. And so it's ironic, we actually have the most enterprise-ready metaverse that currently exists on the market today. And that's even with Meta spending over $1 billion sort of building out their whole workroom and all that other stuff that they've done. And so we did Verbella. We've now got FrameVR.io. We developed that in-house. We have a team that built that whole thing from scratch. And it will actually support up to 1,000 people in a web-based metaverse, meaning that you can go into it on your Chrome browser, on your computer, your Safari browser, on your phone, and you can actually show up as an avatar in a virtual space, sharing screens, sharing webcams, having conversations, moving digital assets, and basically doing all the things that you would do in a physical office, but doing it in a virtual campus. It's really, we refer to it as our digital city. So I can literally walk. We practice a thing called MBAA. So how many of you have heard of management by walking around? Anybody? Okay, a few hands. So that was a term coined by Peter Drucker back in the day, which is that if you're going to be a good manager, you need to walk around your people. Well, in a world where you're entirely remote, you don't just drop into people's Zoom conversations or G-Meets to sort of see what they're up to. And so being virtual, it's the reason why Amazon's pulling everybody back to the office. Being virtual has some real limitations if you don't have the right collaboration technologies. But for us, we call it management by avataring around. So I'll literally bounce into different offices. So Felix, who's over there, or Megan, or Stefania, or Dennis, our Italy leader, or Nico's here from Germany, or Adam Day, or whoever, I'll literally bounce in and out of offices. They'll bounce into mine. We'll have real conversations that will quickly just bang, bang, bang. The friction of communication is so low that we're able to be agile, nimble, and innovative without ever physically jumping on a plane or doing any of the stuff. And so you can check it out if you want at framevr.io. It's an enterprise platform. You can all use it. It's easy to use. But our version of it, we call it exp.world. So it's exp world. And and again, you can even come in there and have conversations with us. We've got an international office that's totally open. And if you're ever just interested, send me a note. I'll invite you in. We can have a conversation, show you how we use it. But for us, we think it really creates the true analog to a physical office. And we've had zero physical office presence. I had a holdout for about 4 years of the accounting team. They said they needed an office. But in the last 15 years, I haven't went to a physical office at all to run EXP in any capacity. And all of our leadership team, in fact, our current leadership team has never been in an office in EXP physically.
Yeah, pretty amazing story. We did our prep call in EXP world and just bumped into each other and had a conversation, and it's a very different experience. Thinking about your international experience so far, and obviously the different levels of maturation of markets in terms of data access, and especially living.
There's data access outside of North America?
There is, but it's different stages, as most of our speakers have told us. Folks, when they're going home, when they're going to their markets, when they want to be able to tell a story and a vision, but then kind of brass tacks about where to get started, where is a brokerage who's coming in who really feels the need for the different levels of access to certain kinds of data and better data and more accurate data and timely. What do you think folks would want to know and want to be able to express to their organizations when they go home?
Thinking about real estate brokerages, I think the real estate brokerages that cooperate together will outperform those that don't. It's what I'm seeing internationally is there's not a lot of cooperation because of the way that they weren't really structured the same way as they were in North America. So everybody basically are true competitors. There's not really the co-opetition or cooperation that we're used to in the U.S. Now there's a little bit here and there. In Portugal, I know that there's a cooperation. There's different markets where there's some cooperation, but it's not overt cooperation. It's not built into the operating system of the brokerages in international markets. But I think the reality is that the brokerages that decide, hey, we're going to move to a more cooperative-based environment. We're going to allow anybody to cooperate at any level that they want to cooperate with us. Those brokerages will outperform because they'll be able to share information, listings, training, support, and a whole bunch of other things. In the U.S., there are 30,000 different real estate brokerages in the United States, something crazy like that. We're all competitors, but we're all also cooperating together, and it really allows the small guy and the big companies to all work together, but still have their very unique flavors of how they do the business. The largest brands in the U.S. are only 10 to 12% of the entire real estate market. So it's still a very small percentage, and that's after lots and lots of money been thrown in. But the ones that cooperate the most are the ones that tend to win. And so that's the thing that I think is really missing is like how you can go back and cooperate. Can you share listings between two different offices that are from two different brands? Like, can you create a quasi MLS just between two offices? Then can you add a third one? Can you add a fourth one? Can you actually sort of integrate? Maybe you pull in a platform that already exists to do this, to now do it at scale. But the more that you share, the more you're going to be able to pick up market share.
It's a great message and a great set of ideas to think about going home, that just making that first step, getting that first step started on that progress, which the bar seems so high to get to a certain level, but that first step is the first critical part. It's an absolute honor for us to have you here. We're grateful as the International MLS Forum. Would you please give Glenn a big round of applause for being here? Thanks.
Thanks.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much. That was super interesting. Next, we have a great panel. You see it on the screen already, which will be talking about the value of listing data and beyond just what we have right now, but also looking into the future on how that might change. And I'd like you to welcome Saul Klein. He's here to moderate this panel. He's the CEO of San Diego MLS. Please come on stage and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Sanford, huh? Get everybody here. So good afternoon, and we got a great panel for you this afternoon. My name is Saul Klein. I'm the CEO of the San Diego MLS. I've been licensed as a real estate broker in California since 1975, and I've seen a lot of change over that period of time. I was on the first Realtor.com team at a brokerage in San Diego for many years, about 20 years, and then got involved with the National Association of Realtors on the Realtors Information Network team as a consultant. Signed up probably the first 500,000 listings for Realtor.com. Is Emily here? Austin was the first association and MLS to put their listings up on Realtor.com, and created a technology program with two of my partners, Mike Barnett and John Riley, called ePro. It was a technology certification program. And then got involved with a company up in Canada called Point Two Technologies, where we were involved with real estate syndication and distributing MLS data to what were the new real estate portals at the time, Zillow, Trulia, and the rest. So I've had a lot of time thinking about data and distribution of data, and we've got a great panel to talk about all that today. So if the panel had come on up. We're going to do this a little bit different. We've got some slides to show you, things that you could take away. This is a great old picture from San Diego. It's an early portal concept before there was an internet. And these are really open listings. And so an open listing is a non-exclusive listing to many brokers. And of course, you've heard over and over again here that what makes MLS work in North America is this concept of exclusive listings. So real estate sold this way, but not quite as effectively as it does today. And so now I'll go through and let the panel introduce themselves. We'll start with Giselle.
Hello, everyone. Giselle Abadi, CTO and co-founder of Realtyna. We serve mainly real estate agents and brokers internationally, present in 96 countries, but with most focus in US and Canada. So.
Hi, Kevin Greene, Senior Vice President and General Manager of CoreLogic's Real Estate Solutions Group. We provide Matrix and other real estate platforms to over 22 countries.
Hi, my name is Jeff Bosch. I am the CEO of IRES MLS in Northeast Colorado. We build our own software there, and we service about 6,000 agents, so we're considerably smaller than a lot of the other US MLSs you've heard from today, but I got my start as an agent and as a broker and kind of transitioned into the MLS space from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victor Lund. I'm the CEO of the Wave Group. We're a consulting firm that's been working with MLSs, I think, just about every MLS that's in the room is a client of ours, or has been at one time, for 24 years. And we help launch MLSs, and we help make them better. We benchmark their effectiveness. And we're currently operating one in Louisiana, about 1,000-person MLS. On the brokerage side, my business partner, Mike Audette, launched RE/MAX into Europe. He launched Engel & Volkers into the United States. Currently, we work with a lot of technology companies out of Europe, like Respi.ai, to support them in their North American expansion. And we help companies like DocuSign expand into Europe. So we kind of work in this intersection between tech, MLS, and real estate brokerages and franchises, and it's great to be here.
Good to see all of you. Let me see if we get this rolling.
Saul, you told us that we were going to have the
Yeah, I know.
up here in the front.
Ali told me the slides were going to be down in front.
Maybe we could get tech to put the slides up on the screen so we can see what he's talking about.
Yeah. So as we get started, I want to talk about this concept of a paradigm and a paradigm shift. And so what we're looking at in North America right now is a complete paradigm shift in the way that multiple listing services are probably going to operate. And I think hopefully we're looking at the same thing in the rest of the world. And so a couple of phrases around this, and I got this from a guy named Joel Barker probably 30 years ago. And he said, when a paradigm shifts, everyone goes back to zero. Your past success guarantees nothing. As a matter of fact, your past success may block you from seeing the future. And then we've got a couple of questions that we have to continually ask ourselves. And the first one is, what's currently possible? And if it were impossible, it would fundamentally change the way we do business. And the next question is the reverse of that. So a paradigm is just a model. It's the way things are done, and things are changing dramatically. So we're just going to go through these slides, and we're going to get everybody's opinion on these things as we go through it. So first, in North America now, this offer of compensation, which is really one of the legs of the stool that held MLS together, this offer of compensation is gone. We still have cooperation, and we have the MLS data, which we're going to talk about. It's critical. It's a single source of truth. There's historical data. There's just an awful lot of information and data that can be available to AI as new AI models are developed. We've got trust and custom that people go to the MLS because they know that's the single source of truth. As a matter of fact, when we talk about portals, that's where the portals get their data, at least the successful portals. They get their data from the MLS. And MLS is also, and we don't think about this much, but it's a data platform. And it's the central part of an ecosystem. So those four items, I'll let you start with Giselle, and we'll just move down the line.
I don't have anything.
Nothing on that one?
No.
So yeah, CoreLogic, as far as the data platform is concerned, and being beyond just the absolute MLS, we also have other platforms like Realist. In North America, at least in the United States, we're the largest aggregator of property record data. And so being able to upload and standardize that data as it comes up, so you're creating a true avenue and AVE, or however that is, and auto-popping those into listing data as that goes, and then as well as then taking that data and being able to disseminate it via whatever permissible use that the MLS gives through Trestle and other, either via API or RETs, and being able to distribute it that way. So we do a lot as far as definitely supporting the data platform issue.
I think of all of these, like the trust part is the biggest part right now. So we're seeing a big change. There's a lot of questions about the ownership of the data, how that works out. And MLSs have traditionally, right, been a one-stop source, right? They have been the de facto source of truth. And you could see that fracture a little bit. So it's really important for MLSs and the broker subscribers that they serve to be able to have that trust that it's the correct place, that they're curating the data, that they're taking good care of it. But also, I think in the US, because of the ownership model, a lot, there's, I think, 521, I don't know, it depends on who you ask.
I think you nailed it.
But, there's a significant number of MLSs, and many of them are underfunded, they're undercapitalized, and so they haven't really brought the technology to bear, and now we're at a point where that's super important, and that game needs to be leveled up.
Yeah, we see a couple of exciting things happen in America, and I think it does move more closely to the European model. So the offer of compensation was a barrier for MLSs to enter into marketplaces like commercial real estate or property letting, which didn't offer compensation in America. It wasn't part of the custom of those components of the shelter industry. Now they are, so we're seeing MLSs. I know you guys are paying close attention to commercial and to property management in San Diego there, Saul. But the other thing that we see as a great opportunity for MLSs, and I think probably the reason why you have so many U.S. MLS operators here, is that now that we don't consider offer of compensation, which was a barrier to entry into Europe, as an important measure of how you establish an MLS, they can now consider opportunities for cooperating with groups throughout Europe, because they do operate. The listing is clearly owned by the brokerage and clearly represented by the real estate agent and only them. And so now that's sort of the model that we have in America, and I think there's great opportunities for European countries to either come together and create that cooperation that you talk about here. Certainly if you had a measure of, firms representing, say, 25% of the market, who they don't even have to share their current active listings, but just share their sold records and begin to build a data repository that allows you to go in and price properties more effectively when you're bringing them to market, and then create that sort of legacy or historical library of listings over time. If they want to move into the future where active listings are shared among participants in the MLS throughout Europe, you can do that, and compensation is no longer an issue anymore. So these are great times. I'm excited.
Victor, you hear people talking about consolidation with MLSs because we have so many. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've probably, over the last 24 years, participated in 300 or 400 consolidations, and certainly helped people roadmap their growth. I see Mary Jo in the front, who represents Stellar MLS. I mean, I think they only had about 15 associations or 10 when Marion, my business partner, started working with them, and they've figured out a playbook for getting more and more groups together, and now they control all of Central Florida and some major cities like Orlando and Tampa. I mean, that's a model, to land and expand. I had a very, very challenging conversation with a broker yesterday, and they were really talking about this offer of compensation and the requirement to put a listing in the MLS. And they said, the MLS creates a marketplace, and you can't ethically represent your seller if you don't put the listing in the MLS. And I said, well, that's kind of a slippery slope, because if your MLS only has 25 participants, I don't know that you actually created a marketplace, versus one that has, Bright MLS or FMLS has 25,000 agents. So marketplaces that are large certainly have a stronger argument than these smaller marketplaces. But the small association-owned MLSs that exist today exist for a purpose, to serve a need for people in an area that's underserved. So it's not always true that a small MLS isn't as viable or as important as a large one, but you really do have to take a careful look at why you don't combine entities.
Yeah, thank you. This diagram that you see right now is this idea of a platform. MLS is a platform. I got this from one of my friends, the CTO, Jay Pepper Martins at the San Francisco MLS, San Francisco Association of Realtors. We're building the same sort of platform in San Diego, but you can see that MLS feeds this ecosystem, and it feeds it in an orderly way. And as a matter of fact, if we didn't have this kind of platform, it might look something like this. And so to go back and take a look at this really is an important concept, MLS as a true platform. Any thoughts about that?
I think, again, ultimately, if you're pulling in things from, it's okay to aggregate like in one place, right? But when a lot of times you see multiple data loops where stuff gets fed in and out, it gets diluted a little bit. Everybody is going to, even if you do a countrywide MLS, you have a border, right? Like you're always going to have a barrier somewhere. And I think some of what this speaks to, though, is not only, what the MLS feeds and what it serves, but also, how you can cooperate with those next to you in a data share situation. So, and make it work.
We did a white paper that's available on wavegroup.com about this. There's a lot of different ways that MLSs can collaborate with one another. And San Francisco is the best example of what we call overlapping market disorder. So San Francisco is an island. It's about, 9 kilometers by 9 kilometers, 7 miles by 7 miles. It's a very small little place. And around it are all of these other MLSs, the brands that you see. And most of the brokerages operate, in the wine country, which is north of San Francisco, in San Francisco, the East Bay, which you probably know as Oakland or Berkeley, and then the South Bay, which is Silicon Valley. So the brokerages operating in that area operate in all of those MLSs, and because you are members of each of them, pulling in data feeds from each of them, real estate agents who are working with a buyer might be looking at properties across these different MLSs. It made it very, very challenging to actually represent a client in real estate. So these MLSs got together and they came up with a variety of different ways of sharing data and sharing access to information for their mutual customer. One of them is that you can just go and click into, through a single sign-on, another MLS marketplace. Another is they have a common data repository and you can kind of look and compare listings across and around the whole area. So I think they epitomize cooperation among MLSs that really benefit the real estate broker and their agents, but most importantly, the consumer benefits. Because if I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a particular price, I don't want to do 4 searches. I want to do 1 and be able to see them all. And it's impressive what they've done.
Not only can the consumer benefit, but also the agent can benefit, because sometimes while there is brokerages that encompass all 5 of those MLSs, sometimes you want to use your local agent, and the consumer can look on the agent's website, being able to see that, go, I really like something in wine country. Do you know somebody that can help me? And they have the ability to get a referral and being able to do that and connect the dots there. So there's a lot of good opportunity there.
So what I wanted to add is that the role that RESO actually played in making all of this possible, and we know that still some old RESO technologies are being used for data share, which is a barrier. But currently, the Web API technology allows for a consolidated 1 feed, regardless of differences between these MLSs. So in 1 payload, you get all the data that is relevant to your search query, and based on the level of access, be it IDX or VOW, in 1 feed. So that is what we've been working on with RESO over the past few years, and I think it makes all of this data sharing a lot easier between MLSs. And we don't need to actually consolidate the MLSs because the local rules and policy of each MLS matters. But the technology now allows to have 1 feed, but with different elements to it.
Yeah, we at CoreLogic have a platform called Trestle that allows you to be able to do that. We have over 147 MLSs that are currently on that. And if a broker theoretically was part of all 147 MLSs, they can get 1 feed for all of that. And so it really helps being able to do that. And RESO is the one that helps being able to do that. Having a standard allows them to be able to get that.
I think one other thing I'd throw out too, this isn't a data sharing panel, right? But ultimately that is one style to work without consolidation, and you don't have to go through as much politics and things, at least in the States, to make that work. One of the things though, so we are fully data integrated with our partner, not quite as complicated as this diagram, but you break different things when you data share. And to the point about serving the consumer, serving the brokers, like you don't realize how dysfunctional certain products are or certain experiences are until you have to do it in conjunction with someone else. And then you realize where the disconnects are at. So, don't be afraid of it for that. Actually, relish the headaches with that because you're making the experience better for the end consumer.
Yeah, I'll be a critic of one thing. I think you're 100% accurate that data going out of the MLS, whether it's through Trestle or other data distribution programs, they are formatted using RESO data standards and are available through an API. The problem is we haven't addressed listing input. So I think Annie Ives from the MLS articulated this very well yesterday. They're still using RETS update for consuming data into the MLS. I believe the only exception might be CoreLogic, who's created an update API. I don't believe any other, I'm sorry if I'm wrong about this, not usually, but I don't believe any other MLS has done that. But I mean, I think RESO really needs to encourage the MLSs to work on their vendors and really make sure that that same API application is used for adding data to the MLS as it is for taking it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're talking about data, but what data are we really talking about? So I think it's important to kind of define when we're talking about data, what is it? And there are different categories of data, and we've heard people talk a little bit about this, and the first one is the property data itself. How many bedrooms, how many baths, how big is the yard, how big is the lot, the actual property description. And there's transactional data that's really important. And if we could kind of bring that to bear, it's like when is the listing taken, and when does the lockbox go on, and when is the first time it's shown, and how many times is it shown, and when does an offer come in, and how many offers come in, and how long does it take for the property to close. And so all that transactional data is very critical and valuable to certain entities and certain people. And then I think it was Emily that mentioned on one of the previous panels the consumer data that's derived from all this data. And so there is a lot of, when we talk data, there's a lot of different data, and that data can be utilized by different sources, and we get to this concept or thought about monetizing the data. What do we really mean? Well, what data are we really talking about?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about property data, you know, the one thing that is just about universal to every country is the notion of copyright. And there are three components that are copyrightable in most legal structures around the globe. One of them is the photography, so you can, a photograph is a piece of art, just like a painting. The second thing is the poetic verse of a property description that's written by a real estate agent. Some might not consider it poetic, but I do. And then the third thing is the compilation, which is all of the elements, which include property facts, the bedrooms and bathrooms, combined with the poetry, combined with the photography, create what you can understand to be a collage. Now in America, when that collage is submitted by the brokerage to the multiple listing service, it's a license agreement. So the broker is saying, I'll allow you limited use to this property for MLS purposes, sharing with other brokerages and agents who might bring a consumer to acquire this property. Then the MLS has a certain opportunity, and this is one of the things that we do really well in the United States. Our MLSs typically on a quarterly basis will take their compilation, their collection, if you will, and they'll submit it to the US Copyright Office, and that allows them to protect the data. If you don't do these things fundamentally, the broker doesn't necessarily own the data. The photographer might not necessarily be represented with their rights, and the MLS may not be able to stop people from using data inappropriately. So I think those are fundamental things that everyone should consider if they're thinking about putting an MLS together.
Well, so you start thinking about the data, we put this kind of value chain together. You got to collect it, then you got to protect it, then you have to curate it and control it, and then you have to distribute it, and then maybe you can get to the point where you can monetize it. But you have to do the other things. So collect it, protect it, curate and control it, distribute it, mechanisms for distribution, and then comes the monetization conversation.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the monetization conversation, it's also tricky because while one brokerage has a lot of data and being able to do that, when you talk about cooperation, they really need the whole pie. And so even like in the United States, while Bright MLS is a very large MLS, it does only encapsulate 7 states. And so the rest of the United States, if you did have mortgage, title, insurance that are wanting to do some type of derivatives from that, they really are looking at being able to have the whole pie. And so how do you distribute that? And that's one of the things that we can do as well.
Kevin, you make available the most aggregated database of multiple listing data through Partner InfoNet, and you call it a partner organization because you represent MLSs in making that data licensable to other entities. Can you explain to them how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the idea. I think we have a little bit over 97% of the listing data for the United States to be able to do that, and we rev share back to the MLSs. And I think right now we're a little over $2 million so far this year, and we've been doing that since 2012, and so we really enjoy doing that on behalf of our MLS partners and aggregating all of that data.
Yeah, we actually in San Diego get a check from you just about every month.
We get it at Greater Southern, too. Thank you very much, Kevin.
You're welcome.
I think too, when you're talking about behavioral data, like even with RESO standards, there are, I don't know, several hundred different ways to describe a property under contract. It's a little maddening, that and days on market. As far as collecting the data, to get to these other steps, if you've not set up an MLS, I think you have to be very intentional about what you want to get out of it. Like a lot of us have kind of backed into that. We've had association input that's kind of created rules that have maybe morphed one direction or another, and the data's gotten messy over time. I think if you are in the process of looking at building this in your area, take the time to be really intentional about what the output is that you want out of it, because that will change the decisions that you make as far as how you build it.
There's a premise around the value of data and monetizing the data. You can't trade what you can't grade, so you have to figure out what that data is actually worth. And a great example, and somebody mentioned Red Plan a while back, and it was something that's been around for a while, and Victor, you're probably...
Sorry about that.
But this idea of data having value. So if you look at the music industry, music is data, and music is valuable. And so there are organizations that make sure that the artist is paid, that the publisher is paid, that different parts of the music creation process are covered and are paid and are tracked, and every time that music is played, someone is paid. And so there are organizations that do this.
Yeah, and of course, Partner InfoNet is the largest organization in America doing it. RE Distribute is a second company that's entering the market to do the same thing. There are a bunch of companies who aggregate a variety of different data, some of which is gray and not properly licensed as well. But thank you for doing it right, Kevin. But Red Plan was the idea that when people are scraping data and illegally using it and repurposing it, that we should be able to go after them. And I worked with Sam and a variety of other people on bringing Microsoft to task recently. They were scraping data off of Zillow and Redfin to popular portals in America, and they were putting them on their portal called Bing illegally. And we stopped them from doing it mostly through the media. We didn't have to go to court, as Red Plan would have intended. But in the US, you get treble damages for stealing copywritten data, and it can be quite damning if you do it. There's some really cool new emerging technologies. One we looked at recently called Sherlock.ai, and it actually goes through the internet and finds your watermarked copywritten data that's not under a license agreement and allows you to at least tell them to take it down, but you could also go after and pursue them in court.
The one difference I'd make as far as the difference between property record data and the music, it says, as I saw somebody, a meme the other day with Mariah Carey in ICE, and it's almost Mariah Carey time for Christmas, and she makes about $1 million a year on the licensing of her song every year, but that's one song. And the big thing on the property record data, it's really important to have a whole compilation of all of your state, all of your city, all of your country, because when that consumer is going there, they really want to see that, or if somebody is using a derivative of that, they really want to have all of that to be able to do automated valuation models or say what's going on in certain areas of the country. So it is a little bit different, but it's a good example of what the power is of copyright.
Well, I think it is important to know that you need some kind of national footprint for this data to have any value at all. And people are afraid, they think, I own this data, and so I don't want to give it to anybody else. But the fact is, it's not worth very much to you because you can't do anything with it. It has to be part of a larger set of data. I remember I write a lot, and over the years, people have said, can I publish this? I say, yeah, you can take it. Whatever I write it for you. Whatever I video, I do it for you. And I'd read this quote, and it's a great quote. It's because I'm more afraid of anonymity than I am copyright infringement. Right? So go ahead and take it and do something with it. And that's the idea here. If you can take it, not give up the rights. If you can take it and you can do something, and you can return something of value to me.
Yeah, I think if you're a broker or you're in the industry anywhere outside of America, if you don't begin to put together an organization where you can collect your historic property data, you're really missing the boat. I mean, you may not, individually it means nothing. It's completely worthless, as Kevin said. But if you begin to put it into a library and you begin to build it out, and you think long-term about our industry, then you'll get to a place where, as Glenn Sanford said earlier on the panel, you'll be able to go back and combat some of the aggressive policies of the portals because you'll have this historic record data that you clearly own, which you don't today.
So we said you collect it and then you protect it, and you've already started this conversation, Victor. So what can you protect? Photos?
Yeah, the photos, the compilation, the text descriptions, and then again, the entire library itself.
Well, so if you're an MLS, how do you go about doing that? You've got this data, you've got this information. How do you protect it? What kind of forms do you use? Is there a process?
I know CoreLogic, for example, and every other MLS in the United States puts together a data file, and that data file is sent quarterly to the U.S. Copyright Office. If you don't do that, and you don't endeavor to protect your data, then it's not protected. That's the way copyright works. So, I think whoever your vendor is, even if you're a brokerage and you have listing input where you're collecting your own data in your back office system, it's probably, for the Americans, we know how to do this. I honestly don't know how to do it. But under international law, I suspect in each of your countries and in the EU, they obviously support copyright. It's an international construct, so you just have to figure out how to do it in your country.
So we also have license agreements, data license agreements, and in many different types of license agreements. The one that most people are familiar with in North America is IDX, which is an advertising license agreement. And I like to joke that IDX has become the Kleenex of data licensing. It seems like everything's called IDX, but there are different license agreements, and you can be licensed to use the data for specific purposes. So we have IDX, and we have VOW, virtual office websites, and broker back office. And there's this idea, we have to give this data to all brokers that are interested in this data. Now we can charge for, as an MLS, we can charge for the cost to do that, but pretty much you have to give this data to whatever broker would like to receive that data. There is this clause called actively endeavor in the NAR rules, and it's kind of, for me, it's interesting that nobody ever talks about this because we have entities that join the MLS for one purpose, not to list and sell real estate, not to actively endeavor, but to get that data, because that's the easiest way to get the data. If you want the data from the MLS, all you got to do is get a real estate license, and the MLS is forced to give you the data. But there is a provision that says you must actively endeavor. You got to participate. You got to add something to the cooperative. Either you list or you bring in buyers. And we have major entities.
Actually, Saul, just to be, you must endeavor to represent a consumer. So that's the important thing. You have to say, I'm in the business to represent buyers and sellers. So that's the definition.
What people should do is go to look at the MLS handbook that NAR published, and as long as you're involved with NAR, you need, right? It's optional, but you have to endeavor. And so what attorneys tell us is they're not sure what endeavor means.
Yeah, that's what it is. If you have a willing consumer that says, I'd like to list my property with you, and the broker denies that, then we call them paper brokers. This is the most unenforced rule in our policy. Zillow gets data from every MLS in the country because they signed up as a paper broker, but they don't represent home buyers and sellers. They do something very different. They refer it out to real estate agents and brokers who do represent buyers and sellers, and often they take a fee, and the fee's a commission. And it's a hidden fee. It's not disclosed to the buyer or seller. I've always believed, and I strongly believe, that if real estate wants to do something right for home buyers and sellers, they'll demand that this disclosure be made aware to consumers, because they don't know. And it's a lot of money, 30% of the commission, right, Jeff, in your market, a lot of times?
Yeah, actively endeavor. Anybody else have any?
I just think, this is I think to this point, we might be the only panel that hasn't used the word AI yet. But, the seller exploit the data. The problem is when you have a feed out, you are trying to protect it, you're trying to license it, you're trying to make sure that it's used the right way. But we all know that there's probably a bad actor that's already submitted your data to an AI bot somewhere. Your licensing and auditing the feeds and looking at it, that's a super important part of protecting the data, right? Because look, no offense, I've got a lot of friends in the vendor community, but there's a script somewhere that says, oh, I need a val feed, because they think that that has the most data, when they're not entitled to that, right? It might be a different type of feed. So I just think it's really important to be conscientious and have the system set up to make sure that what you're sending out is right on the first place, because you might never get control of it back.
So I just wanted to add to that, that the good news is that now with the RESO Web API on the fly, actually data consumers, they don't need to replicate the data, and that can stay on the MLS database and works as a query response model. So that's one way to protect the data, and you're sure that it's not connected to an AI bot or derived other parts of information from it that you are not aware of. So that can be controlled through API controls, basically.
That's so important, Janelle. I've not seen a license agreement between an MLS and a vendor which limits the use of AI. So you guys, everybody knows that AI comes in two forms. One is the open AI form, which if whatever information you feed into it, it can use forever, which effectively violates the proprietary nature of data. The other is the private AI, where you're paying and the AI is operating on your discrete data set, and it's not sharing that publicly with any other entity. MLSs need to go and update all of their license agreements to prevent that open AI use immediately.
So still talking about license agreements, another type of license, we have IDX, VOW, broker back office, and syndication license agreements, which you don't see a lot of anymore. But we listen to Bob Evans here from Realtor.com. Realtor.com is different from the other portals. The other portals typically get their data because they're brokers and they have either an IDX or a VOW license, whereas Realtor.com gets the old syndication license. They're not a broker. They have an agreement that gives them the right to use that data. Then there are MLS participation agreements for the brokers that sign up and participate in the MLS. And in Colorado, we've got some real interesting things taking place with their broker participation agreement. And actually kind of makes sense to me. I looked at it very stringent. It's about giving up your data rights. But of course, if you give up those data rights to a bigger capability, a larger capability to make something out of it, maybe it's not all bad, because maybe that can be monetized, and monetized in a much bigger way than an individual MLS could monetize it. We say that MLSs have content, they have capability, and they lack capital. And maybe they can get capital. And maybe that's going on in Colorado, I'm not sure.
This is pretty much every day of my life right now, because that's my data share partner. So, I don't go by an hour without talking about this situation. But I think ultimately, again, this goes back to the trust thing. Part of this conversation is about monetization. What are the broker's rights in that? The problem with their scenario right now is that it's unclear what the end goal is and where they're going. And it's sowing a lot of distrust. It's sowing a lot of discomfort with the brokers in the market that are participants. And, ultimately that's gonna catch you. If you're a country where you're the single MLS, maybe that's different. If it's a government entity, maybe that's different. But, in a market where you have overlaps, that is super important to be able to run a business effectively. And unfortunately, they're really behind the 8 ball on that one. It's gotten a lot of press, and I don't think it's spun the way they thought it would spin.
Yeah, I mean, they've really stepped up and said, we're going to operate an MLS where we see data as an asset, and this is an individual who owns the MLS, so he's saying, I'm procuring that asset for myself and to monetize it as an asset. So we've always thought of the MLS as a cooperative, something that allows competitors to share and create an asset for their mutual benefit. Now, things are being observed differently, like how can we make this a commercial benefit to private investors? So we'll see how that operates. I mean, I know a lot of brokers are very concerned, and some are very enthusiastic. So it will tell a story for sure.
And I think, too, in regards to that, to your point, I believe this is the first MLS owned by a private entity. Most of them are either broker-owned or they're...
An individual, yeah.
Individual.
Well, there's one other. I think Hilton...
Okay.
Well, no longer. Hilton was individually owned, and now it's it has an investor group of brokers. So
Right.
yeah, this is the first and only.
So one of the exciting things about being here is, in the United States, the MLS kind of grew out of the association, right? And everyone in this room is not encumbered by that, right? You're coming in from the data side, the data standard side, looking at how to build it. But in this scenario, when people are used to having association policies that in essence tell them that they can get their data back, that's part of the confusion and part of the concern here, right? Is the brokers don't know if their data is being locked away in a way that they're not comfortable with. And if, because before the sale was complete, they could just say, hey, give me my data back, and the MLS was required to do that under PDAP. Now they're not sure if they can get access to that data.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch, huh?
Yeah.
So just a phrase for you to kind of keep in mind as you look at data and monetizing data, it's first-party data rights. Everybody's after first-party data rights. We won't talk about it, but if you get a chance, you should Google this term, read about it. You want to add something,
I just
Kevin?
want to add it's the usage piece, and that's a key piece because you don't know what they're going to be using the data for. And that's the one thing that from our Property InfoNet program, we are allowed to use it for match and append for risk management purposes. Very, very specific, narrow rights. When you give that large rights, they can be used for marketing purposes, they can be used for solicitation, they can be used for all sorts of different things. So be very careful as far as what those usage rights are.
So the next piece was to curate and control it. And again, what makes MLS work is we've got rules, and that keeps the data fresh and it's policed. And so a number of different rules, and you can take a look at them. And anybody have any comments on submission requirements? You've got to submit and we've got some controversy over submission, but that's something that makes MLS work.
Look, nobody likes rules. Everybody wants the rules to be enforced on the other people and not necessarily on them. But I mean, ultimately, your data quality comes from having those requirements, right? And we don't. Our philosophy at our MLS, we don't have. Fines are not a line item on our budget, but ultimately, we have to have a way to make sure that that data is correct. And the whole data set is more valuable by that. Some of what I'm hearing from the portals in different areas and that is that it's that inconsistency, right? And I think that really separates an MLS in that situation. If they're not getting MLS data to power them, then how accurate is that data that they're getting? And so, I mean, rules is an important part of that.
Yeah, I would add that, applications, Vista Plus, who's a sponsor here, they have a product called Checkmate. CoreLogic has a great product, probably the longest standing in the industry, called Listing Data Checker. So these are systems that actually review the inputted data that comes in from the agent and broker and make sure that there are no typos, there's no offending elements in it, that it's compliant with housing. These are software systems that create good, clean data, because you definitely don't want offending data to be shared out into the wild. So it's a really important thing, and I don't know what the percentages of listings that actually go through that cleansing process, but it's probably 3/4 or half in America, probably 0 outside of America.
I just wanted to touch on one point on mandatory submission in the previous slide, and that is with regards to recent changes in the practice in the industry and all the litigations and the weakening of clear cooperation policy. Actually, as a technology provider, the trend that we're seeing right now in the market is that we have a product that we created for international market that has an ad listing component to it, and it has never been used or requested in the US. And during the past 1 year, we receive more and more demand from our US-based clients to use this tool and even to add it to our cloud solution so they can add the listings for themselves as office-exclusive listings. So that rings a bell here that, the trend that we see in the market, if the MLSs, they don't adapt to this by, as Saul always mentions, flipping the model to make it more sustainable and fair for agents and brokers that they want to actually submit on time instead of resisting to it. That's a necessary part to keep the ecosystem working.
We have a lot of brokerage clients who do a ton to prepare the listing before it goes in the MLS. and they're automating those systems. So if you take a business like Compass, they have 35,000 real estate agents. When they take a listing, a lot of things happen. Professional photography, floor plans, Matterport virtual tours, sign up, sign down, sign service, all of their flyers, brochures, everything that they're going to do. And in many cases, they'll even go in and remodel the house. So when they take a property to market, it's like an IPO for them. And so they have systems operating in their background that are going to do all of these things to prepare for that listing moment, that go live moment. So they have ad edit. They've been doing it. Your
What
clients,
I'm referring to is smaller brokerages, and they want to just show these listings on their own website. It's just for display. So they're just, MLSs, they don't know what listings are not being listed with them when it's added to another platform. So that's why.
So once you distribute the data, the last step then is monetizing the data. We talked about different ways that you could do this. And while we only have 1 minute and 19 seconds left, anybody have anything to say on monetization before we finish?
I think there are different ways to monetize the data. One is moving more towards an API-based model that you can count the data usage. And the other way is there's a technology that we've been working on called metered IDX, which even if the data is replicated, there are ways to measure the value that this data generates for portals. And then it's a matter of time. I mean, we should reach a consensus in the industry that actually the real owners of this data need to be compensated from this fund.
The owners of the data should be compensated. That leads us to this concept of possibly flipping the model, and if you could create the right methodology for distribution, for tracking, and maybe even for compensating based on data consumption, then you could help your MLS succeed without subscriptions or with lower subscriptions. And with that, we only have 8 seconds left. Anybody got 8 seconds left? That's now 5.
I got 8 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
please
very much.
subscribe to wavegroup.com. You'll learn about all this MLS stuff we've been talking about. And if anybody wants to launch an MLS, give us a call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Saul. Thank you very much. Fantastic. So, our final panel coming up. We have Felix, who is the Vice President of International Growth at eXp Realty, where he oversees expansion across 22 countries outside of the US and Canada, and with more international markets on the horizon. Based in Miami, Felix entered the real estate world early. He jokes he started as a kid since his mother was a real estate agent. He quickly rose to become the sales director for several luxury pre-construction projects, leading a team that handled high-end developments over a 5-year period. Felix is a lot more than what I just described, and I invite you to the stage and talk a little bit more about you. And we're looking forward to this final panel. Thank you.
Did we lose you guys? Yeah, we lost like half the room. I knew this was going to happen when they put us last, but admittedly, I think, and probably biasedly, I think we have one of the most interesting panels, so I really do think they saved the best for last. I'm really lucky to be on stage with these wonderful people. You know, we're all here for a specific reason. We want to create transparency and all the buzzwords you've heard, collaboration, and throughout all these international markets as we bring the MLSs internationally. We do it for the agents. That's why we're all here. We're here to provide value and services to the agents so that they ultimately can provide more value and a better, more streamlined and efficient process for their home buyers, which is what we're all here for. That's why I'm in this industry. That's what I really, truly believe in, and why I've aligned myself with the company I'm at because of our agent-centric values. So with the MLSs evolving away from their traditional focus on just residential real estate and expanding into different types of listings, from pre-constructions to rentals to transaction management tools to different types of bidding and technologies and auctions that they have. the MLS has an opportunity to go beyond just the regular resale market and the residential market and partner with these different technological tools that offer different value propositions to the agents so that they can be better served and better positioned to succeed in this industry. So I'm excited to moderate this discussion. I want to bring onto the stage our panelists. I'll start with Ishay Grinberg, the founder and CEO of Rental Beast. We also have John Kennedy, the CEO of 4property.com. Healy Hynes, the CEO of Beagle.io. And Lauren Schreyer-Merdinger, I practiced that one quite a bit, the founder and CEO of Contract to Close. All right, guys. I really want to give you all the opportunity to talk about your products. I think everything, whether it's the businesses you have and the services you provide, from everything I've learned has been super, super innovative for your agents. So I want to give you all the opportunity to speak on... Yeah, there we go.
You're back on.
Perfect. I want to give you guys the opportunity to introduce your business and also tell us what it is that your business does, what service it provides to the agent as well. So let's start with Ishay.
Yeah, I'm Ishay, founder and CEO of Rental Beast. The fastest, easiest way to describe Rental Beast is we're a rental MLS. And at its essence, MLSs, even in North America where we operate today, did a great job becoming the largest marketplaces and the sources of truth on residential resale properties. But the vast majority of residential rentals never makes it into these MLS system, even when they are well established. And of course, virtually everywhere in the world, a very large portion of the population ends up renting their primary residence and not owning it. So we've developed technology and operational expertise to capture, find, as close as we can get to 100% of all these residential rentals, bringing it, consolidating it into an MLS format. Actually, the hardest thing of what we do is we maintain it in real time, and we've done that to the tune of a little more than 13 million properties in the US and Canada today. On top of that, we have a SaaS platform, a software platform that allows, it's essentially an MLS platform. It allows all the functions a real estate agent and broker needs, from lead generation to even post-closing a lease transaction.
Go ahead, John.
John, out of Dublin, Ireland. I'm a realtor. I own my own brokerage. I'm also a representative of IPAV, which is the National Association in Ireland. And I'm also a technology provider for the last 25 years in Ireland. So we supply CRM, data analytics, data syndication, and design and orchestrated marketing through emails.
Amazing. Healy?
So thank you very much, everybody. My name is Healy Hynes. I think like many of you here, I grew up in the property business. I'm second generation. My dad set up our family brokerage in the 1960s. So bricks and mortar were kind of passed around at a kitchen table like pepper and salt. So I grew up in that environment, but also had a technology bent towards it throughout. Like John, I practiced as a broker for many years, and indeed my sister still runs the family business. Beagle grew out of really that family business, and the problem that we had in managing the transactions and sales and lack of trust and transparency that our buyers and sellers were having in the actual sales process. So it was over a number of years. It's been developed in conjunction with Enterprise Ireland, who are the startup support network for Ireland, and laterally with Microsoft. We're a Microsoft technology partner. The company was shortlisted for Best User Experience in Real Estate at MIPIM in Cannes last year, and we were one of the first European prop techs to be taken on by Mass Challenge, which is a Boston-based technology accelerator. What Beagle is we call it a real estate bidding engine. So effectively what it does is it connects buyers, sellers, their agents, and their teams live in transparent, trustable transactions. It's an enterprise-grade white label technology stack that allows offers to be seen, placed, countered, responded to, accepted and rejected 24 hours a day, even when the agent's office is closed. So it effectively makes the brokerage an always-on 24/7 business. That ultimately increases the customer satisfaction of both the buyers and sellers who are involved in the transaction, and as a consequence, increases the profitability and the efficiency of the agencies that use the technology.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Great. Hi, my name is Lauren Schreyer-Merdinger. I got licensed in 2003. I hold dual licenses now in Illinois and Arizona. And through my travels through different brokerage houses, I noticed several inefficiencies throughout the processes, and hit a moment where I said there had to be a better way. And so my company is contracttoclose.com. What we do is we escort, we take care of the middle. So you've got your search, you've got your MLSs. We've heard a lot about the MLSs, which is why we're here. And then you've got your closing. But what we do is we escort all the players that are in the middle, hold them accountable, create transparency, and create efficiency in the closing process. So what we do, and the best way I could sort of describe it is when you start in point A and you're in Google Maps and you want to get to your destination, how do you best do that? We take care of those directions. We take care of all the players. We take care of communication between the inspectors, the agents, the buyers, the sellers, the mortgage brokers. We take care of the communication between all the parties, and we make sure that there is complete transparency from start to finish so that you end up closing on time.
Amazing. One of the things that I really noted when I got to meet all of you and listen to your stories is that you were all agents. You were all agents who saw a gap in the market, and the best businesses come from consumers who are frustrated with the process, frustrated with how they're interacting with the current services and businesses, and decide to do something about it. So I really applaud you guys for the businesses that you have created. And in this room, in this context that we're in with these MLSs and all these different partners that are here, how can MLSs improve their value proposition to agents and help drive a more collaborative and really innovative process for the agents by diversifying into these different types of new services and new listing types? I think we've got a couple people here with rentals, transaction management. You guys, bidding and auctions, you hit different sides, but ultimately you're all have a tech stack that helps the agent in their day-to-day life, helps the buyer or the seller through the process, and us as agents look to traditionally to the MLS as a service that helps us, right? They're our association and they provide us with these tools. Internationally, we have these MLSs in the room. I'm not saying pitch your product here and now, but how could the MLSs really partner with you guys and with your products and all these different new ideas and different types of listing types to provide a better service to the agents? You can start with you, Ishay.
Yeah, so for me, having been a real estate agent and broker for 22 years, my definition of the job description of an MLS member is to help people find a place to live. I mean, that's the short version of what we do. And because a huge part of the population lives in rental housing, to us, it's very simple. The MLS needs to be the place for both the members and consumers to trust that they can find any housing solution they need. Sometimes it's a property to sell or to buy, but a lot of times it's a property to rent, and that data just isn't there today, or a very small portion of the data is there today. So that's what we bring to the table. I mean, we bring a ton of technology, but we make the MLS partner we work with that largest marketplace and the source of truth for rental housing, so that the members are empowered to service whatever it is, the 40, 50, 60% of the population that rents. As far as how agents are benefiting from that, there is billions of dollars in available leasing commissions. In the US now, in a post-settlement world, where buyer agency, even on the resale side, requires you to negotiate your fee in different ways. Essentially, every rental property out there is a commissionable opportunity. At least in the US, the average rental commission equals a month's rent. It differs between different cities. But there is billions of dollars in leasing commissions. There is a huge percentage of the renting population that converts into a purchase transaction. So we work very, very hard to identify the propensity of a renter to become a home buyer. So you're investing your time. I know John and I had this conversation. You're putting a lot of time into helping somebody find a place to live, even on a rental, knowing that they are a likely buyer, they have the financial health to do it. A lot of times they're interested in doing it right off the bat is something that we work hard to do, and then help you kind of facilitate that so that the relationship you've built converts into more than just that one rental transaction. Especially now, I don't know, again, we're in this international conference, but virtually every market that we talk to is suffering from scarcity of supply. There's not enough homes on the market for sale. There is severe affordability issues. And a lot of times we have renters, so-called renter leads come through the pipes. They're active buyers that are failing to complete a purchase transaction. So you open the funnel wide to renters, you're actually capturing a meaningful percentage of buyers. And then you have the other side, which is the investors class, right? So somewhere between 20 to 30% of all resale transactions happening on these MLSs are not primary residence home buyers that are purchasing the property to live in it, but it's people buying the property as an investment. And a lot of the times they buy the investment property and they're offering the property back on the market as an investment, as a rental. So the first step to leveraging that very lucrative market is to actually identify who's investing in my marketplace. And because we source all the data directly from these investors, we make that readily available within the MLS. And I guess the last point I'll touch on is property management. We're seeing a lot of businesses, and if there's any Australian folks here, in Australia, it's a staple for every brokerage. Glenn talked about EXP expanding there. So in Australia, every brokerage has a property management division. It's a great business to be in for a variety of reasons. For one, even if you've been in the business for 25 years and you're a top producer, if I ask the real estate agent a simple question like, how much money are you going to make in December of 2024, it's virtually impossible to answer that. There's just too many variables that go into which transactions are going to close. We just talked about all Florida transactions, or a lot of them being stuck because of the hurricane. There's just a lot of things that you can't control. If you ask a property manager how much money they'll generate on any given month, they can answer that because it's a recurring revenue business. It's a business that grows during a down cycle. So again, we provide all the tools and the data needed for folks to really materially leverage this massive greenfield opportunity on rentals that's largely untapped for our MLS partners.
Yeah, that's awesome. John?
Last week I was at the conference there, the Property Portal Watch, where it's all the portals from all around the world together, and that was in Barcelona last weekend, and it was the same question in terms of what value can we add so we can charge them more. I suppose it's a bit of a different perspective.
Kind of switching sides here, right? One week after the other.
But they're also looking at what happens around the transaction. Yeah. You know, they say again and again, you know, the moment where you're moving, which is renting or buying, is the moment where you probably spend the most amount of money ever. You lock yourself into long-term contracts, being mortgages, insurance, white goods movings. There's an amazing amount of money that transacts at that point. And they are, you know, looking to see if they can actually get a piece of that, because they're hitting ceilings in some markets where they're not able to keep charging unless the actual money has been generated on the other side. So there's, you know, the ecosystem of, you know, there has to be something on the table for all parties as they try and increase their fees. Ireland is also a kind of an interesting market. Again, with lack of supply on the rental and sales side. There's also an ecosystem between the rental market and the sales market in any market, and one suffering actually really impacts the other. We brought in, the government brought in rent caps, which has now ultimately caused less supply in the market. So the very thing that they actually wanted to do, they've shot themselves in the foot, and actually prices are going up from actually applying these rental caps. And, you know, so, yeah.
So interestingly, I think one of the fundamental points that is at the core here is the customer, is the customer journey. And the customer journey is largely the same no matter where we are in the world. There's large regulatory differences, there's cultural differences, and there's a lot of differences between various different parts of the world. But the customer journey is largely the same. the customer journey begins in an online environment. They start off looking for a property in some sort of an online space. Now that may be a portal in a more, Ireland or the UK or Zillow or whatever the case may be, or in a more fragmented marketplace. We can look at an agent's website and the data feeds that are coming through. We've listened to a lot today and yesterday about that fragmented nature of data and data cleanliness and all, which is a recurring theme, not only in this part of the world, but in South America and Asia. They're having very similar problems. But it largely derives from the fact that the customer starts their journey in an online environment. So that customer starts off there, either the buyer's agent captures them as a lead or the seller's agent captures them a lead, and somebody charges somebody a fee somewhere along the line for part of that capture and the advertising. But that's effectively where it starts. It then fragments into some form of phone calls or emails or back and forth and this, that, and the other. It becomes a disparate kind of an environment. And then it kind of goes back into a digital environment again, be it blockchain for title management or solicitors or whatever, or so once it moves out of the professional to professional space, it's very digitized and very, managed and all the rest of it. Then it goes into the consumer's ecosystem, which is just a mess. And then it goes back into the professionals' ecosystem again, which is very much digitized and so on. So it's that in piece between the middle which creates all the difficulty from the consumer's perspective. Because ultimately, we're all here to serve the consumers, and we can have as many discussions as we like about data standards and API fields, and they're incredibly valuable. But at the end of the day, we're all feeding off that commission check that's coming in from somebody buying a house and getting a set of keys and moving in and putting their feet up in front of the sofa. I don't think we can lose. Occasionally, if we get too far removed from the transaction, we lose the context of why the transaction is actually happening. So be it a portal or be it an MLS, the MLS holds a very significant position in that it's effectively a distributor of information between the agents, especially in less regulated marketplaces or less formalized marketplaces, with that top of funnel portal through to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we kind of do is we digitize that middle piece. So if it's a portal environment, we digitize between the portal and the agents and the buyers and sellers and blah, 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 blah. But that's effectively, that technology piece is transferable between any different marketplace. It doesn't matter whether it's the US or the UK or Ireland or Italy, or there are nuances which the agents themselves and the business themselves have to transact with, and there's interfaces in there. But ultimately, we all serve the customers, and when we're building our technology stacks together, we have to realize that for the MLSs, the agents are their customers. A lot of the agents that they're dealing with are very small businesses. They're mom and pop shops, effectively like the family business that I worked in, and they don't have the technological resources to go and build these tools. Franchises can provide them with some of them, and I know EXP spoke about it earlier about building these tools, and ChatGPT may be generating code, but that's fine. But it's like expecting somebody who doesn't know how to drive a tractor to plow 50 fields in the morning. Just because the code can be generated doesn't necessarily they know the right questions to ask her. So there's always a role for the SaaS providers, and I think that's the role that the MLSs can provide, that central point of truth, that they can reassure the agents that they're dealing with that the technology is here, we've got the support, we've got to back it up, and it can be as technological as you like, but if Mary forgot her email address or Paddy is not certain whether the offer actually went through and needs confirmation that it was received at the correct time and say, yes, it was, we got your offer, the reply came back, and all those trust and transparency issues can be dealt with in technology, but ultimately the agent's role is there to support their customer, be it the buyer or the seller, and the MLS's role is, I would say, to support the agent in providing that and giving them the tools and the comfort and the support they need to ultimately make the transaction as smooth as possible.
I completely agree with you, by the way, so that was good. Lauren?
And following up on that, so being from the United States and using the MLS, I just sort of take it for granted exactly what the MLS does. You want to go in and you want to find a property, you want to get historical data, you want to be able to do a pricing model, you want to do all that. It's in the MLS. And the statistics are that in the United States, about 37 to 42% of small brokerages or single-owned brokerages have the technology and have technology support. And so what we're finding a great deal of success in is helping MLSs and associations bring this tech stack and transaction management into their services, which then they can then enhance the usability onto the smaller brokerages, where then they can actually play with the big boys. And I think that there's been so much disruption now that it is how the MLSs seem to be seeking. How can we help the smaller players pony up and play ball with the big boys? And so that's where we're finding a lot of success. And then what we're doing is, by using a transaction management system we're keeping the member and the user longer. Instead of just in search and closing, we're actually allowing the member to become a part of that transaction process in the MLS for a lot longer. We're creating a stickier situation within the system and finding much more success.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of conversations today and yesterday as well about how do you implement an MLS in a new market where it's just not the custom, or the portals have the power, or there's no government regulations, or whatever the case may be. Should you just go all in and be disruptive and say, this is how it works in North America, so this is how it'll work there? Or should you try to kind of cater to the market specifically? And I've heard some really interesting both sides of the spectrum. One thing I do know for sure, in any business, but specifically to our business in real estate, when we're expanding into new markets, you definitely have to maintain your vision and your purpose, and your mission statement is true when you expand internationally into new markets, but you also have to use localized services and localized systems that are catered to that specific agent's needs, right? So there's a blend there, and that's really how you get to the agents. The way you do that is by focusing on who your clients are and obsessing with you mentioned the customer journey. Obsessing with that customer journey, obsessing with what their problems are, and then figuring out what your business or solution or service is, what solution does that provide to the agent? And if you're able to do that and you get across the value that you're trying to bring, and you're bringing a solution to them, to a problem they have, they'll adapt to something new, because you're coming at it from a solution for them and not a solution for us sort of point of view. So my question to you guys is, as you were building out your businesses, what was it that you looked at with your consumers when you were building out a rental process or an online transaction management tool, all these different tools that you guys have? What did you do to figure out that customer journey? How did you identify the gaps and the pain points that your consumers had that ultimately led you to building out your business?
Well,
don't think about it too hard. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, a few points. One, if you're a real estate agent, it took me, I think, 3 months before I got my first commission check. It just takes a really long time to get started in this industry, and to have somebody entrust you with what is usually the largest transaction in most people's lives, which is buying real estate. So the only reason I survived, and I think a lot of agents survive in the beginning, is they do rentals. You have to start small. You gotta eat while you grow your business. And there was just no system around that. There was no education around rentals. There was virtually no access to rental data. So I had to figure it all out, and a lot of other people have, so I'm not unique. But that was kind of the motivation around that. Long term, again, I think the job of a real estate professional is to help people find a place to live, and rentals aren't going away. So it had to be addressed, and that was my big motivation. It's not that big of an aha. It's just impossible to figure out what's available and for what price in most markets, as crazy as that might sound. Even in markets in the U.S., you go to LA. I know any eyes were here, and you sit down with 1,000 people and you ask them, how did you find your rental property? And virtually everybody has the same answer. It's, they have a local website, a local portal called Westside Rentals. That didn't work. I went on Craigslist. That didn't work. And then I drove around looking for yard signs. And probably one of the most trafficked town in North America. So that's crazy. and that's kind of what we're working to solve.
John?
Well, I also started off the agency actually with the rentals side and grown quite a substantial amount of a book now. In Ireland, the rental fee is you know, the sales fee is 1.2%, which is not, it's like a fraction of what other markets are getting. The rental fees that you get the month, but then you get the management then thereafter. So the lifetime could be 10 times what the actual sales fee is ultimately. Now you need a team to manage that and service that over time. But you know, and then some of those rentals then become transactions that you can go on and sell as well. On the technology company side, I started out with a rental portal, and I ended up selling that. But I needed structured data because the data was flowing in very, very kind of. You're trying to get people to use interfaces, and they couldn't even use a mouse at the start of the whole thing. So delivered a CRM to structure the data, get the uploads, get the images all flowing up, because dial-up then was pretty bad and it would fail and then they'd just lose heart and they wouldn't upload the listing. But one thing a speaker said earlier on, and what I would recommend, they talk about standards and RESO, like really a big focus should be actually in developing all the APIs in order to actually allow access, open access to the data. And there's a business model there around that in terms of almost like cloud computing, charging for access to that, you know, created as a utility and an agreement where there's fee sharing there, and it could go back down to the actual agent that introduced the buyer as well. There's a whole open ocean there, I think, to be tapped into on that. There was another point, but I can't remember now.
If you think about it, we'll come back. No worries.
Yeah.
Healy.
So interestingly, from a technology perspective, I was kind of lucky in that I had a tech background as well. In addition to the real estate agency that I ran, I also ran a new homes creative agency. So we work with property developers and so on. So from an agency perspective, the technology, as I said at the beginning, came out of the problems that we saw that our buyers and sellers were having in the transaction. So we built a solution. That solution was built to solve that problem. And then more and more agents started using the platform that I built. I said, can we put our stuff up? And I was like, could be something here out of this one. So at that point in time, I kind of stood back because the real estate industry it's a strange kind of an industry. There's low cost, high change industries like Netflix, and like it's $9.99 or $12.99 a month. So if you don't like the movies, you don't like Netflix, you just cancel it and you pick it up next month when the new season of Stranger Things has picked up. But real estate doesn't work like that. The system may be broken and it may be bad and may be atrocious, but the alternative could be worse. So I'll stay here where I am. Thank you very much. So there's a barrier and a resistance to change, industrially speaking, not from the consumers, which is the fascinating piece about this. We did a survey in the US earlier on this year, and the customer reaction from recent home buyers on the adoption of digital offers and the value add that they saw was way off the scale of what I had actually anticipated. And if parties are interested, you can go onto the beagle.com website and you can actually download a copy of that report. But what it showed was that the consumers were actually more open to the digital transaction piece than the industry is. The industry was resistant to the change because they felt themselves being displaced from it, because the cycle is so long in home sales, that 1 minute it's a co-brand of a product and there's a platform and there's concerns about Zillow taking them out and who else is going to replace the agency in the transaction. So we realized that for grander adoption of our product to be done, we need to be absolutely invisible. We need to be infrastructure. We need to be something that the agents can do with as so and fit into the transaction itself and effectively go away. So and almost like a less is more type approach from a product development piece. Which sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult to pull off. But luckily enough, it's something that we have managed to do. And as a consequence, like our end customers, our end users, the customers don't even know that it's our product. If the agents don't like the interface that our clients have built, they can effectively go build their own using the API stack that's been provided. And the customer journey is effectively controlled by the people who are ultimately responsible for that, being the agents themselves. So it's a long piece of study in understanding the industry as a whole. And my suspicion is that a lot of tech companies who are looking at the real estate industry come at it externally from a technology perspective, say, oh, I can do this and I can do that. But they don't understand how the industry functionally operates. And I'm lucky that, I said, my family has a background in the Irish real estate, but my family also has a background in the US industry. I have cousins, like for some reason, we've all ended up in the real estate industry. I have cousins who are doing the same thing throughout the States as well. And when we're sharing war stories over family dinners, what you hear coming back is very reminiscent. The details vary, but ultimately it's the same customer experience, and it's the same thing that they're trying to solve, no matter where they come at it.
So I think the question is, why did I start this? Or something?
Yeah, they shouldn't have put two Irish people on the panel at the same time. Yeah. But go ahead.
It's okay. So to be candid, actually, I hate getting yelled at. I'm the second child. It was just never right. So, and I hate getting yelled at. And as an agent, even when you do your job correctly, you make sure everything is going according to plan. There was a closing, and I got yelled at, and I didn't like that very much. And as I was leaving the closing, I said there had to be a better way. And so I did just a couple quick searches on what are the biggest stress points of the transaction for the agent. It's managing client expectations. It's time management, stakeholder communications, the emotional toll that all of the closings and transactions bring. The managing the administrative tools and the processes, because when you get a listing or you get a contract, you have to download all this paperwork, and under all these different brokerages, even though they all had their own little twist on how you did the systems, it all really ran the same. And we're all here, we're all from different parts of the world, and you'll have buyers and sellers that want to buy and sell. But what is that process in the middle, and how do you alleviate all of those pinch points? And really what my system does in contract to close is we streamline that process. We make it in a logical order. My longest career really is interior design. And so that was my first career, and it was always a belief that form follows function. And how do you best create a technology solution that does the same thing? And we all have the beginning and we all have the end, and how do we process that in the middle? And so in order to keep all the stakeholders in the process, the truth in the transaction, we've heard a lot in the last 2 days about trust in the transaction and how do we keep it all transparent. And contract to close does that. A transaction management system does that. It takes the process, it alerts everybody in the whole process, and it really helps the MLSs and the associations bring it all full circle, because when you add that as a tech stack, it just helps everybody down the line, from your member users to the buyers to the sellers and everybody within the system. Again, like I said before, the inspectors, the mortgage brokers, the title, the closers, everybody gets the paperwork and gets notification. So it really keeps the whole process very, very transparent. And I think that that's really what we're all about, is how do we make the process easier and more efficient and more streamlined. And that's what we do.
That's perfect. With 10 seconds to spare.
Perfect.
That's great. Well, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing the stage with me. I love hearing about all the diversity in the MLSs and the opportunity that the MLS has now going internationally to partner with companies such as the ones that you guys have started to provide more value to the agents and really bulk their value proposition. So I learned a lot. I hope everyone else did, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much,
everyone.
Felix.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Thank you, panelists. What a great lineup today. So we're coming toward the end of this afternoon and all of the sessions, and it's actually time to find the winner for our little raffle. But I must say, you have to be present in order to receive the prize. So those of you that are still here, hopefully it will be one of you. All right. And the winner is Lubomir Andrasik. Are you here? All right, perfect.
Okay. So to wrap it up. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we should. Kelly, could you take a picture? Congratulations. Okay, we have a couple more slides you should be aware of. Very important dates. Good news. Next year it's going to be in Toronto. As you can see, the date is a little earlier than it is here. And it's also going to be warmer than it is inside here. So, oh, wrong slide. RESO is also going to be warmer in Texas. Later this month, and I highly recommend everybody coming there. Sam will promote it. It's a great, great conference. You learn all kinds of things. And this is the one next year in Toronto. Probably warmer. John DeMichele can maybe confirm or not. And we hope to see you all there. And of course, Abu Dhabi after that. And as a final note, we want to say thank you to CEPI, RESO, Realtyna for putting this event together. I think it's been a huge success. We all have learned a lot, maybe more than you probably even wanted to. And so this has been a total success in my perspective. And we hope to see you later on today at the gala. The event starts at 7:45. And the doors will close apparently strictly at 8. So there'll be a bouncer there that won't let you in anymore at 8 o'clock. Okay, just let you know. See you all later. Thank you for being here.